And so the year was 2006. If you'll recall, the Florida Gators had a pretty good football team in 2006. We won the national championship that year. And I was lucky enough that my family, we would go down for pretty much every home game to watch the Gators play. And so I can't recall exactly which game it was because I was only 7 years old at the time. But what I remember is our typical move was to stay in Lake City Friday night, depending on when the game started, right? Stay in Lake City Friday night, go to the game on Saturday, and then we would typically drive back after the game on Saturday, and we would get in super late, typically Sunday morning around 1 a.m. You know, if it was a night game, it was pretty late excursion, and then we would be ready for church the next morning. But one of my, I won't say it was a fond memory, one of my clearest memories from that time period was after the game. You know, I was so excited, but I was so tired from a long day of just screaming at the top of my lungs and cheering and things like that, you know, as a kid, you're 7 years old, you're going to fall asleep in the car on the way back. It's a 4.5 hour ride back to Milton. And so we stopped for gas, probably in Mariana, because it's the cheapest gas in the Panhandle. And you know, the lights of the gas station kind of wake me up. I open my eyes and I look over. In the seat between me and Trevor is a Checkers bag. And if you know anything, you know, if you listen to this podcast for any amount of time, you'll know that I love Checkers. I think their French fries are delicious. I think their burgers are delicious as well. And the issue with this is that I had fallen asleep and the rest of my family had gone through Checkers, and they did not wake me up to see if I wanted any food. So they all ate their entire meals. Oh, I'm sure they were laughing about it. You know, I'm in the back sleeping, and they're probably all, you know, laughing. This is how I imagine it, at least. They're chatting with each other, laughing. Their mouths are just full of chewed up food. Ha, 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 you know, laughing at each other, laughing at me mostly. And I was enraged. I looked at Trevor, I said, did you guys give me anything? He said, no. Why would we? I said, because I'm in the family and I'm in the car. Just because I fell asleep doesn't mean I'm not hungry. And he was like, sorry, we went through the drive-thru, but you didn't say you wanted anything. I was like, well, obviously I'm asleep. Wake me up and ask me if I'm hungry. And so I was beside myself. Trevor turned the bag, which had at that point been turned into the trash bag. You know, you take all your wrappers and throw them and consolidate them in the bag. He's like, we might have something in here for you. So I got a little excited. And like one little burnt, crispy fry falls out of the bottom of the bag. And that set me off even more. So I was really very, very upset. At that age, there's really not much you can do about the situation because, you know, riding in the back, you don't have a ton of power. But I never let them forget it. And this is another instance of me not letting them forget it. So I just want to let everyone know that really stuck with me. That was many, many years ago, but I still remember it vividly. And every time I see a Checkers, I think about that moment where my family essentially betrayed me. And didn't really ask me if I wanted any food.
Hey man, I appreciate you sharing that. I know it takes some serious gusto to do that. What I will say that's fascinating is your memory is incredible. To remember something from the age of 8 or 7 that's so in depth and in detail, that's pretty special. You know, normally people that have those kinds of memories, they're accused of making them up. You know, no way you could remember such things like that. No way that happened exactly like you mentioned it. But you, however, have displayed a remarkable, and I do mean remarkable, ability to recall important events in your life. You know, it takes me back to a time just a few months ago when you shared about the law enforcement on the water. And you shared in great detail and great depth of the beauty and the importance of law enforcement on the water. I believe they call them the water enforcers, or the water police, some might say. And I just want to celebrate that for a moment. But you also mentioned something. You said, just because I am asleep does not mean that I am not hungry. You know, there's a great philosophical thought there. When we are asleep, are we hungry? What do you think?
I think you can be, because I've had dreams of food before. I've had dreams of great feasts, and I wake up and my stomach is growling. So I don't think it's far fetched to say that you can be hungry and asleep at the same time. Although you're not actively pursuing food or something like that, but yeah, I mean, even subconsciously, if your tummy is growling and you're dreaming of food, like, I think you can certainly be hungry and asleep at the same time.
So then let me pose this question. If you're hungry while you're asleep and you are dreaming about the great feast, picture a cornucopia in the middle of a family dining table, and you are going right at it. And you're eating the cornucopia, well, what's in the cornucopia, which we can dive into what might be in the cornucopia later. But say you're eating that in your dream, and your hunger and thirst is quenched in the dream. Do you wake up hungry?
I have found personally that whenever you try to eat, if you're hungry in a dream and you try to eat something, it seems like there's always something that prevents you from actually taking in the food. It's almost kind of like a fever dream situation.
Someone walks in with a shotgun and they shoot you right before you take the bite of the loaf of sourdough.
Yeah, either that or like it keeps slipping through your fingers or something, something ridiculous like that. You look at your fingers and they're covered in, I don't know, something slippery. Why can't I just, grab this corn on the cob and take a bite? But
and
maybe
then
that's
it turns
just me.
out,
maybe I just have some odd dreams.
And then you wake up and you've urinated all over your hands.
That's probably true. That's the best explanation, really.
It happens to the best of us. It's okay.
Look, I was a bedwetter as a kid. My mom can attest to that. I was, guilty as charged. I was a flagrant violator of that one.
Well, I think that leads me to a great question. Quite frankly, it leads us to a great question is, what is going in your dream feast, your dream cornucopia?
That's tough. I feel like a cornucopia gives off serious Thanksgiving vibes. you know.
And I don't even hardly know what a cornucopia is. I might be saying it wrong.
No, I think you're saying it right. Um, to me, a cornucopia is kind of this, I don't know, it kind of looks like a horn, but I think it's a basket type deal. And it has a big opening at the front, and then it kind of spirals back. Um, but yeah, cornucopias are very fall esque. So I always kind of imagine there being some little miniature pumpkins, a couple squash, um, you know, maybe a zucchini or something like that. I just always feel that it's going to be full of little fall vegetables and things like that, which are not necessarily items that I would be licking my chops for. I'm not a pumpkin guy. I don't think pumpkins are delicious. I think pumpkin flavored things are kind of gross.
Yeah, and so the question, let's restate the question. What is going in the cornucopia in your dream that would allow you to lick your chops?
That's tough. I mean, I think I've said this here in the past, but one of my favorite foods or genres of food is hibachi. I love hibachi so much. So as soon as you said my dream cornucopia, would have to be some hibachi fried rice would be the bed. Maybe there's some shrimp and steak that are grilled up with just loads of yum yum sauce drizzled atop. Perhaps some orange chicken thrown in there. I know we're going between Japanese and Chinese there, but I think it would all be delicious together.
It's a dream. And if I know anything about your dreams, you desire for the Japanese and Chinese to be in unity with one another.
Yeah, it's true. That's my biggest dream, ultimately. So yeah, you could ask me that question 15 times and you probably get 15 different answers based on, how I'm feeling. But that was really the first thing. That was the first thing that came to mind was just, man, some fried rice. And when you think about fried rice between hibachi and a Chinese place, the Chinese, they like to do their fried rice a little drier. You know what I mean? Whereas hibachi, you'll have, the eggs are a little more fresh. They cooked them right in front of you. There's a little more soy sauce. Obviously, there's tons of yum yum sauce and things like that. So, in this scenario, I'm thinking the fried rice is a Japanese hibachi fried rice.
And why do you think that is about the Chinese?
I don't know. I don't know if soy sauce is I think it's a Japanese thing. And I think the soy sauce and a lot of them use a sesame oil as well. And I think that adds some moisture to it. But the Chinese, they really don't put too many sauces in their fried rice, and that it kind of produces a drier fried rice. Not saying it doesn't taste good; it's delicious, but it's a little different. It's a variation.
Yeah. So is hibachi strictly Japanese?
I think hibachi gets its origins in Japan, if I'm correct.
And so your orange chicken fried rice is the Chinese dish. I'm thinking Asian walk and grill, which I understand Asia is a continent and not a country. But I would categorize Asian walk and grill, which is a local place, as a Chinese food restaurant, not a Japanese food restaurant. And so they have drier rice, but it complements their dishes more. It allows the orange chicken sauce to be more prevalent. It really does.
Yeah, and I think whenever you eat them together, the chicken the chicken is saucy, right? So the kind of the drier fried rice sticks to that chicken well. I think, like you said, they complement each other very well. And I think the way the Japanese do it with their hibachi, it complements itself as well. So, like I said, they've just got little different variations of how they do it. Not saying one's right and one's wrong. They both complement each other well, but that's just how my cornucopia kind of laid out there. So, but I would love to hear what your cornucopia, your dream feast is.
Well, one, praise God for your cornucopia. And secondly, praise God for both the Chinese and Japanese for making incredible cuisines. My cornucopia, it would look a lot like, I think, a meal. And here's why I say that. I think the cornucopia is a deep and versatile dish. And so we're starting with the appetizers. We're getting into the meal, the entree, and you're going to have desserts. Well, of course, that just leads me to my most preferred meal in the world, which would be a bread roll, a salad, and here's where it gets real dicey. Sweet potato, creamed spinach, ribeye steak, more bread, chocolate cake. You put that in a cornucopia? There's some dangerous things that will happen in that cornucopia. Now, if I had to choose one dish, I love the hibachi train. I do. You throw yum yum sauce in the rice. You get some chicken and steak. I'm going to pass on the shrimp. Not because I don't like shrimp, but cornucopia is pretty special. And grilled chicken and steak together are special. Now, I did forget one of the greats that could go in the cornucopia is, of course, the chicken Jalisco double rice, no beans. And that was a missed opportunity on my part for not thinking through my answer. But I'm really all over the place. What I will say, I'll say this. Mexican, pizza, and Chinese food, if you put those three things in the cornucopia, it would be a dream.
So you understand like the concept of a cornucopia?
It's pretty much a big hole.
Right. No, that's pretty accurate. It's just a giant bowl you put a lot of stuff into. So your salad and cream spinach and chocolate cake all mixed up together. I don't really know how that would bode for you. And you're
that sounds a lot more like a salad than a cornucopia.
I mean, with chocolate cake.
I don't know that the cornucopia gets all mixed up with each other.
I think you are bringing your own personal preferences into this, because I've got a news flash for everybody here. Bo doesn't like for his food to touch. Okay. And
I view the
cornucopia where all the food touches, it is an overflowing horn of food. And he says, I want my chocolate cake and my salad to be in the cornucopia all together. But
here's what I view the cornucopia. I view the cornucopia as a charcuterie board it's just because the cornucopia is not, you don't pick up the horn and start pulling things out like Mary Poppins' purse. Cornucopia is lying on a table and things are inserted into the cornucopia, and you're looking inside the cornucopia and you're picking out what you want. And so that's how I'm viewing it. Now, are those multiple different genres of food? Absolutely. And so if I had to go one genre, I would go ground beef and cheese. Not really. I would probably 93.7. You gotta have it.
93.7.
Really, if you put meat, red meat, and chicken in that cornucopia with some pasta, Alfredo, there, you can mix it all together. That would work well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that would work for sure. Yeah, once again, I just go back to, you said you like to reach in and grab what you want out of the cornucopia, and I just imagine you pulling out a slice of chocolate cake and having to pull some iceberg lettuce and bits of sweet potato off of it. It just sounds horrendous.
I'm not thinking this is a blind cornucopia. I mean, it's our dream cornucopia. We get to do what we want with this cornucopia, and my food horn is going to include what I desire.
With little dividers so my food doesn't touch.
Precisely. And so, you know what else was divided? Was each day. There's 24 hours in a day, and then another day sets. And so I'm curious how the past few days have been, because quite frankly, we missed 1 week. And quite frankly, there's a good reason. We must evacuate. And tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I won't go back 2 weeks because, frankly, my memory is terrible. And I also don't make any, really notes. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. 2 weeks ago, I did not. So you guys are just going to have to guess what happened. I will say this past Sunday, today's Sunday, 7 days ago Sunday, Molly kind of, I don't really know how to say this. She brought up the fact that we have a podcast, and she kind of broadcasted that to our entire Sunday school class. Some of them knew, some of them didn't know. I didn't quite know how I felt about that because we are, we spread organically. We are word of mouth, but I don't like, you have a captive audience of 20 people. I don't think that's a good word of mouth. I don't think that's a genuine word of mouth. But anyways, she was talking about how on our podcast, we talked about, the government creating weather systems and things of that sort and weaponizing them, which of course we will discuss on our Patreon conspiracy theory episode. But anyway, she put it out there. I didn't really appreciate it, but it's, it is what it is. Coming out of that discussion, a good friend of mine from our group named Austin, he said, dude, I didn't know you had a podcast. I'm going to check it out. And so I referred him to our website, and he said, can we write in and ask questions? Can we leave voice messages? I said, oh, dude, yes. 1,000 times yes, and I'm begging you to. So big shout out to Austin. I think he's going to tune in this week. And if you do, Austin, you should know that we love you. We love you deeply, and we love you generously. On Monday, I had to go do regular work that I typically would be doing. But Monday, there was a storm that was brewing. And all the meteorologists said, hey, this storm's going to hit Thursday. Or at that point, we thought it was Wednesday afternoon. So I'm looking at my watch, and I'm thinking, I got 2 days to get ready for this thing. I get home from work a little early. I get home probably around 3 o'clock. And I see that the storm, which is Hurricane Milton, has increased to a Category 5. And I say, look, I look into the eyes of my beautiful son, and I look at my amazing wife, who is incredibly pregnant. And I say, look, guys, I don't really want to be in this house with you gentle souls when this hurricane's coming through. So let's get the heck out of here. And Monday night, we packed up everything. I got some shutters put up on our townhouse. And we got out of town around 5:30, and we drove up to Gainesville. And if you don't know, the drive from Sarasota to Gainesville is about a 2.5 hour drive if there's no traffic. We encountered a little bit of traffic heading north, and it seemed almost as if everyone in the Florida peninsula was on I-75 heading north. So they had opened up the far left shoulder as a fourth lane, and it took us 7 hours to get to Gainesville. We got there around 1:30 in the morning, and I feel so bad because Stetson slept for like an hour that whole time, and I thought we had broken his spirit there for a little bit. But you just see people that run out of gas on the side of the road and they've got nowhere to go, you know? They're like, look, this is as far as I can go because there's, no one else has gas or anything like that. Luckily, I filled up over the weekend and we had enough gas to get to Gainesville, but it was a mess. It was like 10 miles per hour the entire way up. One of the most frustrating times driving that I've ever been behind the wheel. We get to Gainesville. We get up the next morning. We got probably 6 hours of sleep. Get up the next morning and we go to Milton. And you're probably thinking, wait a second, the hurricane is Milton. And I got probably 5 texts throughout the week that said, pretty funny that you're fleeing from Hurricane Milton and your destination is Milton, Florida. So I don't know if this one is going to be big enough or devastating enough to retire the name, but it was a pretty cool coincidence. And maybe cool isn't the right word, just a real coinky-dink, as they say. So we get into Milton Tuesday. We're staying at my parents' house because they were planning on coming into town for this weekend and hanging out with us. Obviously, that wasn't going to work with the hurricane. So we said, look, we'll come up to you guys. We'll hang out. And yeah, it was a blast. We hung out on Tuesday night. We did dinner together. My mom did some chicken noodle soup, which is perfect for the fall weather. I was texting some of my colleagues that stayed for the storm down south, and they were like, hey, my power's out. The wind is crazy. And I looked outside and it was, 65 degrees and blue skies. And I mean chicken noodle soup. So I felt a little bad about that. But look, it's not my fault that I evacuated. I can't feel bad about that. So that was Tuesday. Wednesday, yeah. Wednesday, we went to Brother Fox for dinner, which is a restaurant in Pensacola. It was really nice. I feel like if you're an adult in the area and you have a significant other, that's a great spot for date night. A 1.5-year-old, it's kind of a quiet setting, really nice. And it's kind of hard for a 1.5-year-old to really appreciate that. So we had to do a little bit of child management throughout dinner, but it was a fun time. Got to hang out with my brother and my sister-in-law and their new baby. So that was pretty exciting. And then we went to Krispy Kreme donuts afterwards. And I just made that executive decision. I said, look, we're in downtown Pensacola. We got to go by the Krispy Kreme to get back on the interstate. I'm going to stop and get us some. So it's after dinner. I say, look, I gotta use the facilities here at this Krispy Kreme. My bladder's about to explode. So I say, hey, Molly, hop over in the driver's seat, go through the drive-through, and I'll use the bathroom at the same time. That's an efficient way of doing things. So I go and use the bathroom, and I'm watching the conveyor belt. When you walk into a Krispy Kreme, you can watch the donuts fall into the grease and then flip over, go through the icing dredge. And the workers were in the back. They were just having a conversation. They weren't actually watching the conveyor belt of Krispy Kreme donuts. And this one section of the conveyor belt got caught, and it had like 4 donuts just mangled together in this giant dough ball. And they let it go, and they finally cleaned it out, but they went ahead and fried this conglomerate of donuts. And there was a couple other donuts that got jacked up next to it. They had it, they flipped it, they fried it, they sent it through the icing. And so I'm like, look, we're here, we're buying 2 dozen donuts. Maybe she'll let me get a free one right here, one of these mangled donuts that they'll never be able to serve to anybody. And you've got the lady who's got the headset on that's working the drive-thru. She's filling up boxes, and the place is empty. Me and my dad and my mom are the only people in there. And so I go up to her and I say, hey, looks like you got a couple mangled up donuts right there. Any chance I could get one of them? And she looks at me and just goes back to what she's doing, like turns her back on me and continues what she's doing. And for all of you listeners out there, that was a stone cold look me in the eyes and shake your head. She did not say a single word to me at all. I was like, the least you could do is just say, no, sorry, company policy, we can't do that. Sorry about it. I would have been fine with that. But just the look up like I was some nobody. And
that's like
just shaking of the head.
Yeah, whenever people tell you, oh yeah, the worst they could do is say no. Nope, that's wrong.
The worst they could do is not say no.
Yeah.
And just shake their head in a very, what's the word? Not disapproving way. Just disregarding almost, And it was clear they were going to take those mangled donuts to the back since they had no other business that night. And they were going to feast on them. They were going to make a cornucopia of Krispy Kreme donuts.
That would be my cornucopia.
You're like cream spinach and Krispy Kreme donuts all mixed up together. But I was, oh man, dude, that boiled my beef, dude. I was like, look, have a little dang customer service. Say, no, I'm sorry. You could be apologetic about it. You could say whatever you want. You could say, get out of here, dude. Get out of here. I'm not giving you any free donuts. But she didn't even do that. She just gave me the head shake. And that really kind of set me off a little bit. So that was Wednesday. Thursday, we got to see both sets of my grandparents, which was awesome. Stetson got to kick around outside in the yard barefoot. He loves to do that. He was chasing some bubbles and playing with the dog and all this other stuff. So he had an absolute blast this week. We went to the Water Pig in Pensacola with your parents for dinner, which I thought was delicious. I know you joined us for that, so I'll let you, when your week comes up, I'll let you kind of pontificate on that one. But I enjoyed it personally. I thought the views were incredible. I thought the food was really good. Friday we went through and we saw some grandparents again and hung out a little bit. And then we left around 4 p.m. to go back to Gainesville because, we're getting word from our friends that, hey, the power's back on. Everything's, up and running again. Gas is slim, but at least we have electricity. So he said, look, let's go ahead and make the first leg back over to Gainesville. And then we can kind of launch from there, if you will, whenever we want to head back down south. So got into Gainesville around, I don't know, maybe 9:30. Hung out with you guys. Jackson, unfortunately, I think it was at a retreat. He was on the Swanee River. I don't really know what all that entails, but he was retreating from something. I don't think it was a hurricane. He was retreating from everyday life. And then Saturday, we spent the whole day in Gainesville, and that was what a blast that was. I got to, re-meet some of your friends from your life group. We played pickleball for about 3 hours, which was just what a fun time. You always talk about playing pickleball in the community you have there, but when you go and actually see it in action, and I've been several times before, but I'm always reminded, you go and you see the action, you're like, man, this is it's a great little community you've got here. But you have to be intentional with it. You can't just not go and say, oh, I can't be a part of that community. You've got to be active with it. So that's one thing that I learned from you this weekend. What else do we do?
That could be a new segment. One thing we learned from each other.
Whenever we're hanging out with each other. What's one thing you learned about me this week?
That you're a narcissist.
Whoa.
No. I wasn't actually calling you a narcissist, but that is something a narcissist would ask. What's one thing you learned from me, about me?
Oh, yeah. What's one thing that I taught you this week that you will implement for the rest of your life? And so we went and saw our friends, Lucas and Hadley. They just got a new house that they just moved into a few weeks ago. I think you had mentioned a few weeks ago you helped them move into this house, but man, it was so nice. You're getting a new build. Everything's bright and everything works. It was a blast. So we went for a walk with them Saturday afternoon, and then came back to your apartment and ate some pizza while we watched the Florida-Tennessee game. Won't talk about that one too much, but a lot of blown opportunities. Look, defense played a lot better than what I was expecting. Defense played better, frankly, than they have in the last probably 3 years. But the misfires on offense gave the game away. You could say you got to go for two, or you should have done different in overtime. But we could have won the game there in the first quarter. When you leave 21 points on the board in the first quarter, that's horrendous. And you're not going to want to, you're not going to win a lot of football games doing that. So let's see. Sunday this morning, we woke up this morning and headed back down south. We got here around noon. My buddy Andy texted me while I was driving down. He said, hey, my father-in-law made this tea time at 1 p.m. and his hand's swollen from I think arthritis or something like that. Do you want to play in his stead? And I said, well, babe, are you okay? I mean, I know it's kind of last minute, and my wife was gracious enough to let me go. So went and played golf, got a lot of sun. I use sunscreen on my ears and the back of my legs. So those are really kind of the hot areas, if you will.
I'll tell you this, you look great.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I'm a little sleepy, but I feel like I got some. Feel like I got some decent sun. Couple notes from the golf game. I drove the ball well. I've been driving the ball well the past several times I've played. My chipping was on fire. There was probably 3 or 4 approach shots that I left. I had 3 or 4 foot putts. Missed pretty much all of them, of course, because I cannot putt. But I was feeling pretty good about my game. I scored a 92, 93, something like that. But our round was 5.5 hours. And that is because we had a foursome in front of us who would slice their ball into the woods every single drive and then would proceed to look for their ball in the woods for about 5 minutes before dropping, hitting another terrible shot into the water, trying to fish it out of the water for 2 minutes, hitting their third shot, so on and so forth. So you can imagine, and everything's, lackadaisical. There's no urgency whatsoever. If I'm hitting shots into the woods, into the water, there's an internal clock as a golfer. I'm not saying I'm a seasoned golfer, but I've been on a golf course enough to know there's an internal clock, kind of like a quarterback, when you say, all right, it's time to pick up, or all right, time to drop a ball and just hit another one and say, say la vie to that other one in the woods. These people did not have that. So we dragged behind them for about 10 holes, and we ended up just skipping a hole so we could get ahead of them. And we, finished the last 6 holes in something like 30 minutes, it felt like. So we were absolutely cruising, but there was like 2 other groups behind us. We were all in a tee box just talking about these people. Like, they ever played golf before? Like, common courtesy, let us through. But they did not wave us through. So that was a shame. But I know I've gone rambling on about my week. It was a long one. That was full of adventure. But yeah, I'd love to hear your perspective. I know we were together for a decent amount this week, but I know you had some other different experiences than me on some things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to share one thing with you that you just mentioned is you went on and on about rambling about your week. You did not ramble. I want you to know that this is a safe place to share your experience. You have 26 people who are invested and interested in you. And there's many more than that, but that's just what the analytics are showing. And so I want to celebrate your willingness to be transparent about your week. And I will now share about my week. And frankly, my week, I wanted to share a couple of things from the previous week because it was good. It was. And one of those moments was, here's what I did, is what I was going to say. I played tennis. I played tennis with Haley, with Thomas, with Benjamin and Taylor, and it was phenomenal. Now, they know who they are, and let me give you a word of encouragement, my friends. You've done excellently, and it was a lot of fun. It really was. Then I met with my great friend Ryan, and that was fun. You know who you are, Ryan. Then on Thursday, this is not Thursday of this past week, this is the Thursday before. I'm doing a little quick recap because I want to make sure you didn't miss a single moment of my life. Unity Party meeting. Well, the union is strong. The state of our union, however, is divided. And so when you meet together and gather as brothers and sisters, looking to create change in the world. In a world of chaos and disorder, we are striving to bring order. We are striving to point people to human flourishing. But one of the things we discussed at this meeting is, what does human flourishing look like, and why is it important? You know, the mission of the Unity Party to create a nation in a world where life can flourish. Well, one, you have to ask, what is flourishing? And what is life? Right? Is life any breathing and living organism? Or is life considered human only? Human in nature? And I think the answer to that question, as the person who prayerfully created the vision and mission, was we are going to use all life so that humans can flourish. So I think about a deer, for example. A deer, well, I think the scriptures are clear. We have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the animals on the earth, over the living organisms. Now, what does that mean? Are we using those living organisms to glorify God and to help others flourish? That's the big thing. Because if we are focused on our own flourishing, well, then we're not focused on human flourishing, right? That's just pride. And so, number one, a focus on human flourishing requires sacrifice to yourself for others. Now, why in the world would you sacrifice part of yourself for others? Why would you sacrifice your desires for someone else's? Unless you believed in a creator God that calls you to that. Now, many people, they ask me, and I had this conversation, many people ask, well, is that just Christian nationalism? No. And because Christian nationalism, frankly, is not Christian. Many Christian nationalists, they do not understand the scriptures, to put it plainly. So I think we have a wrong definition of Christian nationalism. That's what I would say. Anyway, yeah, go for it.
I don't want to venture too deep into this, but I would love to hear your perhaps definition of what Christian nationalism is, because it's tossed around a lot in politics, and it's thrown around a lot in the media. And I would agree with you that, first off, I'd like to hear your definition of what it is.
Yeah, well, while I don't have a definition pulled up on my device here, this is the vibe I get from people who talk about Christian nationalism as a buzzword, is they are... It's all about forcing your beliefs on someone else. And it's not even, to me, it's not Christian beliefs. It's just beliefs in general that may be, they could sway liberal or conservative. But at the very end of the day, Christian nationalism is an idolized thing, because what we are now idolizing is the nation. So we become, we don't recognize our position as exiles in the land in which we live. We put our identity in the nation in which we live, and then we try to finagle and figure out how to use how we live in this nation as our primary objective, while including Christian morals in that nation. I don't think that's what the Bible calls Christians to. Christians are called to, it doesn't matter what nation you're a part of. Your primary mission is to glorify God and make his name known. And so if we idolize a nation, for a nation to be Christian, well then, what does that take? I'm not saying, to be quite frank, America was founded on Christian morals and ethics. But Christianity is not bound to America. Christianity did not start in America. And God, in his scripture, says he is the ruler of all nations. God is not just focused on America. God does not prefer America over another nation. But I do believe Christian nationalism, in its definition as a society, would say that America is the most important nation. That's kind of the vibe I get. Of course, I wanted to preface that with, I do not have a definition pulled up on my device.
I think that's a fair response, and I agree a lot with what you said there. I think when we use Christian nationalism and we throw it out there, like I saw an article last week where, a hostess said, "Have a blessed day" to somebody, and they said, this is evidence of Christian nationalism reaching into, every part of Americans' lives, and this is terrible. I'm like, I think that's a little bit of a stretch because they're getting offended that someone is saying "have a blessed day." But yeah, not to get you down the rabbit hole on that one. But it's certainly an interesting topic.
Well, I'll tell you, rabbits, I believe they go in holes, and that's what makes them grow. That's what allows them to continue to breathe and live. But at the end of the day, a Christian's identity would be in Jesus Christ as a daughter or son of Jesus Christ. And so our ethics and morals must be motivated by what Jesus did for us, not by what we desire a nation to be. And if we get that backwards, we start to worry. We think the world's going to end, which it will end, my friends. That's just the truth. But we idolize. I'm saying Americans are pretty guilty of this, at least, is we idolize who's in office, as if that's going to change our identity in Christ and that's going to change our views on things. At the end of the day, we just have to have a priority of mission, and the mission is to glorify God in everything we do and to make his name known among all of Judea, which is our locale, Samaria, which is our opal. I made that word up, but opposition. And then to the ends of the earth. Well, what is not the ends of the earth? Not the ends of the earth is just America. The ends of the earth includes the entire world. And it's a sad realization whenever we become so idolized on American politics, or even politics in general, that we fail to remember the institutioner of government in general. And we fail to trust in the institutioner of the government in general, which is the creator of the universe. And not only that, my friends, it's a promise in Scripture that it's all working out for the glory of God. So I don't know if that's encouraging to you, listener, or if that challenges your views, but I hope it's both, to be quite frank. So that was Thursday. No, I'm just kidding. That was a rabbit, and we chased it. So, like Brett said, Sunday night rolls around. Sunday night, of course, you got the buzz about the hurricane. Well, also Sunday night, the Pittsburgh Steelers and Dallas Cowboys were supposed to play. Well, frankly, their game got pushed back an hour and 45 minutes. So I actually fell asleep on Sunday night. And I woke up to the Dallas Cowboys winning, which is a big surprise based on their game today against the
I couldn't tell you.
That's sad because I watched it. Oh, the Detroit Lions. It was absolutely pitiful. And that's okay. That is perfectly fine because never mind, that's another rabbit and I will hold off. But anyway, Monday, like Brett said, Monday they came from Sarasota, they arrived in Gainesville. Well, Monday I'm working, Tuesday I work, then Tuesday night we studied 1 Corinthians 11. And 1 Corinthians 11 is a powerful passage because it talks about head coverings in the church, and it talks about the ordinance of the Lord's Supper. Now, it's in the context of how a public worship space should operate. And it's quite a fascinating passage when you dive into it, but ultimately you see people dedicated not to the comfort of themselves, but to the comfort of Not necessarily the comfort, let me rephrase. They are dedicated to the spiritual flourishing of the people around them. And it's just completely selfish and selfless and sacrificial worship, which is what worship should be. Worship should not be about you, and it is not about you. It is about the one who created you and, quite frankly, died for you. And so it was a pretty cool passage to see and study. Tuesday night after Life Group, I drive to Milton. And I wanted to mention on Monday I saw, I think it was 5:30 a.m. Me and John Park were working on a room here. But it was this lineman truck and this weird yellow truck. And it was dark. But this yellow truck jumps in front of the lineman truck, then jumps back out, and then looks straight to his left and gives him the bird, and drives away. And I thought to myself, that was an interesting interaction at 5:30 a.m. One that, to be quite frank, I was not expecting, but was quite entertaining. So I don't know what resulted out of that, but I was looking at incident reports, and there were none from Monday morning on that road. So praise God that there was not an overreaction there. So Wednesday rolls around. Wednesday, I awake from my slumber in Milton, Florida, and I started to work. That it's just a standard day, just work remotely. Same thing with Thursday, except Thursday, I believe it was, we had the water dog shed. Is that right? Watershed?
Water pig.
Water pig. And we delighted in various foods. Loaded tots. I had a salad with all kinds of meats. A meat salad, if you will.
Sounds like a cornucopia.
Yeah. They said it couldn't be done, yet we sit here and it happened. And I believe there was some cream spinach in there as well. And maybe some morsels. Toll house. And it was good. It really was. Then we ate from dessert. We ate at a place called Ice Cream. And Brett and I were talking. These shops are just brilliant. The old school, old-timey shops. Because if I'm looking for ice cream in Pensacola, what am I searching? I'm searching up ice cream in Pensacola. And what's going to show up? Well, it's going to show up a literal place called Ice Cream in Pensacola. And so, unbeknownst to these shops at the time, their search engine optimization rating is a 10 out of 10. And that's just, there's something to be said about simplicity and being transparent in your offerings, if you'll allow me to put it that way.
That's an excellent way to put it. I mean, I think it was like Ice Cream Shop, maybe was the name of it. But yeah, we were talking about it, and I was just, I don't know if it's a laziness thing or, lack of creativity back in the day when these stores open, but it was just, Ice Cream Shop, LLC, like there could be billions of those. And now in the digital world that we live in, you Google ice cream shop and you're standing there on Pensacola Beach. Guess what's going to come up? The ice cream shop. So these guys are really, they didn't know it at the time, but they were pulling the right strings.
They did. They really did. And they had great ice cream. I'll tell you that much.
It was good.
It was incredible. So Thursday ends, Friday morning I arise once more. I drink a cup of my mother's coffee. She brewed it fresh. Well, let me rephrase. It was a kettle of coffee, if you will. A carafe, that's the word I'm looking for. It was a carafe of coffee. And she made it fresh, and I drank some of it, and it was good. Well, then that energizes me for my next journey back to Gainesville, which is usually, depending on how you drive, a 5-hour drive, usually for me. It took me 6 hours this time. There's a bit of traffic on I-75 with everybody returning from evacuation, I should say. And it was a fun little drive. Well, Friday evening, I need to return to the church to set up for an event, but also to check to see, because when the power goes out at a building like that with lots of things plugged in that are essential to work, you might want to check to see if things work. And what I found out is that the computer in which we broadcast died. And so my Friday evening was spent trying to figure that out, and I failed. And so my Saturday afternoon was also spent trying to figure that out, and by the grace of God and the gift of internet and patience, it worked. And we should be firing on all cylinders, but I got a little nervous, I'm not going to lie. And that's okay. I think it is. And then, as Brett said, Saturday morning we all pickleballed. And here's what I'll tell you is, I shared this with Brett. I share this with y'all every week just about, is it's just an incredible group, an incredible time. You don't get better. People are having fun out there. And the question is, are you going to have fun? Because the only thing stopping you from driving to Northside Park, if you have the ability to, is you, right? If you have a car, you have two working legs, or even if you have prosthetics. That's the word I'm looking for. I play with a guy in pickleball that has prosthetic leg. It's possible, folks. And he's great. My point being, it's out there if we want it. But rarely are those things just going to show up at your doorstep. You have to put in some intention and some effort, kind of like Brett alluded to. And it's just fun. Really, get out of the comfort zone a little bit. Warm up the elbows. Start bending your knees a little bit. I had to do some hamstring stretches, to be quite frank, because I had to cancel my orthopedic appointment due to Hurricane Helene. And so I've gone a few weeks without stretching. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I don't go to physical therapy just for stretching, though it is a great benefit. The pickleball is fantastic. I'll tell you that much. And then I returned from the church, and Molly, Brett, Stetson, and I, we enjoyed some evening football, and some evening dinner. And we miss Jackson, of course. Jackson is the brother. Jackson is my brother. He's fantastic. As Brett alluded to, he was retreating from something. And I think they were retreating from life, to be quite frank. I think many students are struggling in life right now. And they had the challenge of endurance. How are we going to endure? And so as you retreat, you have to be moving towards something. We can't just run away. I think we've talked about this before. And so if we retreat from life, we have to run toward endurance so that we can move forward toward life with this new attribute and new trait. Amen. Amen. And so I pray that was a phenomenal time. Sunday morning, I arose from slumber once more, and unfortunately, the family was asleep. It was a little early, so I wasn't expecting much, and I did feel bad because I had to leave and did not say goodbye. But the beautiful thing about the internet, about cell towers, and about cars is that we will see and talk to one another once more, and that's happening. It really is. So Sunday morning, it's a work day for me, but I get to serve alongside my friend Evan, helping lead worship, and that was a phenomenal time together this morning. And then I returned home, worked a little more, ate some food, watched the Cowboys get obliterated, and now I sit here in the presence of all 26 of you and my friend Brett.
What a week.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, really, the hurricane, it throws a wrench into a lot of things. Obviously, a lot of people affected in some serious negative ways, but opens up a lot of opportunities for adventure, things you wouldn't have done otherwise. So that's pretty cool on the other hand. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
So,
well, any songs of the week for you, brother?
I'm going to be honest with you. I want you to go first because I need to pick mine.
Of course.
I'm a wee bit unprepared.
I'm going Paradoxology by Elevation Worship. Paradoxology. I don't know how else to say it.
And what do you like about that one?
It's a paradoxology, so it's the doxology except para. Now, do you know what paradoxology means?
I know what the doxology is, and I know what a parachute is. So if it is a parachuter who is singing the doxology, then that makes sense, but I don't know what a paradoxology is.
Frankly, you nailed it right in the head. So that's precisely what it is. And it's a great song that I would recommend.
Well, that's great. That's great. My song is going to be 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton. Spotify just recently came out with they make little playlists for you. And this one was an upbeat playlist. So it's got all kinds of stuff. It's got country music. It's got pop music. It's got a little punk, I don't know how they determine what is upbeat and what is not. But 9 to 5 was on there. It's not something I'd typically listen to, but it's pretty catchy, man. I mean, obviously it's, whenever it came out, it's very popular. Dolly is one of the, most decorated musicians of all time. So we're just going to go with that one this week.
That's powerful. And here's one thing that I wanted to share is we talked about it on Saturday morning at Pickleball. Many of those people, you kind of mentioned it, you get a little uncomfortable when people start talking about the podcasts around you. You know, you'd rather them talk about it in their own circles without you there. It's a little more comfortable that way. Right. Well, the people were calling for an in-person episode, and that did not work out. And I wanted to apologize for it not working out to our listeners. With the time constraints of the day, you just run out of time. And that's okay because we prioritize this time so we can talk to you. Anyway, I wanted to throw that out there because I know it was something that was desired by our people and we did not deliver. And that is no way that we want to live. So we will commit to being better for you.
Yeah, for sure. And I was asked the question several times at Pickleball, hey, I heard it's going to be a live episode. What, this, that, and the other. And I was like, yeah, that's the plan, So I felt a little bad that it just didn't work out. It, like you said, the timing wasn't there. Puts a little bit more of a burden on our post-production team. Just logistically, it's a little tougher to piece things together with a live podcast afterwards. So, yeah, apologies. Like you said, it's unfortunate. It's fun to do it. But like I said, puts a little bit more of a burden, a little more of a strain on our team. But, I'd love to sit down and, make a promise to do one here soon. So.
Yeah, and I'm not going to blame your son or anything, but
he's a lot.
He wanted to be a part of the podcast. He really did.
Yeah, I don't know if his personality might be too big for a podcast like this,
And so maybe we have a special episode. Son of Chris.
That'd be great. he knows a lot of words, but I don't know if a full hour would work. I think you'd probably get a solid 10 minutes out of him, if that. I think you would be lucky to get 10 minutes, but it would be gold for 10 minutes. So
there's some serious opportunity. So listeners, if you're interested in this opportunity, you need to let us know. Like Brett said, leave a voice message. That would be very beneficial. Email us. Any kind of communication back and forth is what we strive for, because we don't want this to be a one-way communication tool. We want this to be a community of deep and generous love, because we love you deeply and generously, and that's why we're going to see you in 7 days.